Today is February the 20th, 2023, and the location of the interview is located in Walla Walla, Washington. I am interviewing Dennis Early, a veteran of the Vietnam War, leaving the service as an E5. Dixie Ferguson, myself, and Vic Phillips, the videographer, are conducting the interview. So, Dennis, where and when were you born?
I was born right here in Walla Walla.
Walla Walla. Okay. And
November 24th, 1947.
November 24th?
1940. I was born on Thanksgiving.
All right. Well, great. And again, the war and branch of service you served in?
The Vietnam War, United States Army.
And you already answered. You left the service as an E5. And were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, I enlisted.
And why?
Well, I just gotten out of high school. I tried college for a few months. It wasn't fitting. I said, "Oh, this is not what I need to do." So I went down and enlisted.
Right. And you were living here in Walla Walla at the time?
At that time, I was living in Kennewick. My mom and dad had moved over there. He was manager of the country club for several years. Here in Walla Walla, and then he went over to Kennewick Country Club, so they were living there at the time. And like I said, I just didn't feel like college was for me right at that time.
And why did you pick the branch that you picked?
Yeah, I didn't want to be on a ship, and I wasn't sure about the Air Force. In my estimation, the Air Force didn't seem like it was going to be enough excitement for me, I guess. I found plenty as it is now.
Right. All right. So, do you recall some of the first days of your service, and where did you do your basic training?
Fort Lewis.
And you were there how long?
I was there for 8 weeks.
And could you describe the first few days?
It was wet. It was not very much fun out there running around doing push-ups and running 5-6 miles in the rain, and you're out there bivouacking in the rain. I mean, everything was wet all the time. That's what Seattle was. It was just the wrong time of the year to do it, I think.
And that was when? What time?
March.
In March. Did you start questioning your judgment?
Yeah, especially when we had to fall out in the morning, and the sergeant would go by and check you out. Well, I forgot to shave. So he made me run back in the barracks, get my razor, come back out in formation, and dry shave. And that was the last time I ever forgot to shave, because that was excruciating. With a dry blade, it felt like half my face was coming off.
Do you wonder how they think these things up?
No. After about 4 weeks, I became a squad leader, and things seemed to settle in, and the sergeant, he became at least human, instead of just all the time, calling you names and making you do this and do that. It became, they kind of drilled into me that if I didn't pay attention where I was going, it wasn't going to be a heck of a lot of fun. So.
Right. I'm sorry, March of what year?
1967.
Okay, you were right in the thick of things. Did you pretty much know you were going to go to Vietnam?
That was embroiled in me the first day of basic training. You are going to Vietnam. When, we don't know. It depends on how many schools you go to, but you are going no matter what. And
what were your feelings about that?
At the time, it didn't really scare me. I mean, I had no inkling of what Vietnam really was. All I knew is it was a long ways away, and there was some action going on over there, and I didn't realize how. I mean, I think they had like 105 different types of poisonous snakes.
Did they give you those war stories?
They did. They brought us all these rattlesnakes, and they showed us how to handle them and this kind of stuff. But I'm still scared to death of snakes.
I don't blame you. 8 weeks. You completed that. Did you feel pretty well trained at that point.
Yeah, but then we went to advanced infantry training, and that was even worse because that was at Fort Gordon, Georgia, and it was really, I'd never seen a cockroach before in my life. And in the barracks, and of course the heat was outside and it was piped in. Somebody had to shovel coal all the time. But if you turn on the light to get up to go outside at nighttime, crunch, 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 crunch. Then you turn out, you see there's cockroaches covering the floor. What? Who in the hell want to live here? So 8 weeks of that stuff too. And then we went to jump school, which was another 5 weeks.
And where's that?
That was at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Yeah.
And cockroaches there as well, but not as many because I was on the upper floor, so they were all mostly downstairs. So
Cockroaches like the bottom floor.
well, I'd never seen one before in my life. Yeah, they're pretty good size.
Were young fellows from the South, were they used to them?
Yeah, it seemed it was normal.
Yeah.
They thought it was a riot. Be get up crunching all the way to go to the bathroom outside. Holy mackerel, you guys live like this down here? 'Cause, I mean, they get on the countertops. They get everywhere. We don't have them here.
Is that a year-round thing down there?
I think so.
I'm sorry, that was 8 weeks
That was-
advanced training?
8 weeks advanced infantry training at Fort Gordon, Georgia. Then 5 weeks at Fort Benning for jump school.
Oh, I'll stop right there. What was advanced training like for you, other than the cockroaches?
It was more intense. You were hands-on with the weapons. You were crawling around in the mud, live fire over your head, doing all kinds of, picking up your mattress and running around the compound with it if you got in trouble. I mean, if one guy in your unit got in trouble, you all did. Everybody runned around the unit with you. I really didn't want to be there then. I mean, I'm serious. I wanted to go home.
No. Speaking of home, between Fort Lewis and there, were you able to communicate with your family?
Yeah, I call them once a week. Because you had to stand in line because they only had like 3 payphones outside. And you had to have a roll of quarters in your pocket. And when it came your turn, you put all the quarters in. And the operator, you didn't know when your time was up. She would just cut you off. So
You had to talk fast.
Yeah, you had to get everything in $10 worth.
So you go to jump school. Tell me, was you had a choice to do that, jump school?
Yes.
And why did you want to do that?
That sounded like a real thrill.
Was it?
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, you get to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, but it was fun. But it was running all day long. I mean, you had to run. They built you up pretty.
Now, literally run all day long.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was part of jump school. If you weren't practicing jumping out, they had towers that you jumped out of in a harness. So maybe 35 feet in the air, and you would jump and pretend like you're going to hit the ground, like you're in a real parachute. And so that's what got you set up to jump out of a plane with your parachute on. And of course, they taught you how you throw your chute out, where to pull, when to pull, and that sensation coming down like that, there's nothing like it.
Okay.
I keep telling my wife I'd like to go do it again. She says, no, you're not.
Tell me about your first jump out of an airplane.
I had my eyes closed when the guy ahead of me, he wouldn't go, so the sergeant just pushed him out. So I just went right out after him. We were on static line, so your parachute, the main parachute, automatically deployed, and you had a second one right here. If it didn't deploy properly, you pulled it on your own. You came down a little faster, but it was amazing. I took a camera up with it. I wasn't supposed to, and I was taking pictures of all the guys in the air around me. I showed them to my mom and dad, and they just, "What, are you crazy?" They thought I was crazy. Yeah, well, I might have been too. I don't know.
What kind of an airplane and how far up were you?
We were at 2,500 feet, a C-19 and a C-123.
And, kind of a silly question, why paratroopers?
They were some of the best of the best. I didn't want to be just a regular, I wanted more.
And what is the concept of paratroopers to jump out of planes?
To get where you've got to go fast. You can't go by bus, you can't go by Jeep. You can go places where they just drop you in and you know, you're right there, you're ready to go. You've got all your equipment on your back, you got your rifle that's strapped to your leg.
You're going to Vietnam, but probably no jumping there.
No, we didn't jump at all over there. Too much jumble. Nobody would survive that. The BC would catch everybody. You're up in the air hanging from trees and stuff. So it was probably a good deal that we didn't have to jump.
Exactly. How many jumps?
Let's see. I think I did 19.
Okay, again, getting back to that first jump, tell me the thrill or whatever, emotion of it.
Okay, can you imagine yourself up on the Empire State Building and looking down? I mean, that's quite a ways up. If you're afraid of heights, you're probably going to lose it. And of course, I'd never been afraid of heights, because I'd never been that high before anyway. But like I said, I'm like this. I got my reserve parachute in my hand like I'm supposed to, with my hand on the pole, and I jumped out. And the next thing I know, like I said, it was on static line, so it automatically deploys your chute, and it hits you pretty hard. That's when I opened up my eyes. They were closed when I went out, because I didn't know what was going to happen. So, and then you just kind of floated down.
How did you land?
If you're not in the wind, you land at about, I think they said 100 miles an hour.
Whoa.
But your top parachute landing falls right, left, forward, and back. So you're looking at the horizon. If you look at the ground, you're going to break a leg. But if you look at the horizon, you can see it, and you can kind of get ready for the impact with your toes pointed down. And depending on which way the wind is taking you, if you go to the right, you make sure to land here, here, and here. Those are your first three points. And then you're not going to break a leg that way.
And you were ready to go again.
Yeah, it was exhilarating after that. In fact, some of the guys didn't want to do those extra jumps. So
I'm sorry, the what jumps?
They didn't want to do their jumps. They had a girlfriend or something. So I said, give me $20 and I'll jump for you. Because they don't take your name. They just count heads as you jump, getting on the plane. So I made a little extra money by jumping for other people. So,
what a gig. What a gig.
Yeah, I would have too.
I have not heard that story. You've completed that requirement. How long did it take you to meet the requirements for all those jumps?
Let's see. It was 5 weeks to the day. On the last day of the 5th week, that's when you got suited up and went up for your first real jump.
Okay. Now, at the end of all that, did they immediately give you wings?
Yeah. Yeah, you sit in a row, and the commanding officer would come by and pin the wings on you.
Nice feeling. Huh?
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, then of course you got wings on your little boat hat. That was another thing that I didn't want to wear the baseball hats. They didn't look very good. I didn't want to wear the police-looking hats. The airborne wore, I forget what you call them, little boat hats with a patch up there saying airborne, and that made me proud.
Sure.
I was proud to wear it when I went home. And of course I had the wings on my chest. That made me even prouder. So.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And they made you a lot better soldier. I mean, you paid attention, otherwise you're going to get hurt jumping. So.
Yeah, well deserved.
Only had one guy, the day before we were supposed to do the jump, he come and this guy looked like a football player. I mean, big strapping kid. He says, I'm dropping out. I said, we're jumping tomorrow. He says, that's why I'm dropping out. I said, you went through all this training just to drop out? He says, I can't stand heights. So that was the last I ever heard from him.
Was he probably the only one?
He was the only one in our group, yeah. Out of 30 guys that we started with.
Yeah. You know, it makes you wonder, who knows, if he looked back someday and, you know, kind of regretted all that. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, I hope he didn't regret it, but that also meant he wasn't going anywhere except he was going right to Vietnam after that. I got, you jump planes or go to Vietnam, what do you want to do? He says, I'm going to Vietnam. I guess, well, that was a stupid thing. I stay away from that as much as possible. After you start learning a little bit about Vietnam and what was going on over there. So.
And speaking of that, were you hearing more and more down at Fort Benning?
Was that what?
Were you hearing more about Vietnam and Fort Benning?
Yeah. They showed the videos, you know, later in the afternoon after you got done with your running and doing your push-ups and your pull-ups and all that other good stuff. Then they bring you in, sit you down, and show videos of what was going on over there. And some of it was, you know, bombs, mortars.
Yeah. Did you have instructors who had already been to Vietnam?
All of my instructors had been. Everyone that I had, all the way from basic, all the way through the special forces.
I'm guessing that was an advantage for them to share.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem logical that a guy that had never been there could teach you anything that's going to save your life before going over there. I mean, so like I said, every one of my instructors had been over to Vietnam at least one time, some of them multiple times. So.
And you paid attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you didn't pay attention, you were getting your ass kicked anyway, so.
So, okay, you're through at Fort Benning. Now what's your next adventure?
Green Beret training, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
And how did that all happen?
Well, okay, I got done with jump school, and I'm supposed to go to Officers Candidate School, but they say it's 3 weeks away before the next session starts. When you got 3 weeks to do nothing, you're on KP all day long, every day, because they got nothing else for you to do.
Yeah.
They can't send you to Fort Bragg. You can't send you home for just 3 weeks.
Can't send you to Vietnam yet.
And I said, I need to do something else. I'm not doing, I did KP. I mean, it wasn't any fun, but everybody had to do their fair share. But with 3 weeks, I was 21 days of KP straight.
Yeah.
That's 5 o'clock in the morning till like 7 o'clock at night, doing pots and pans, peeling potatoes. I said, this is not.
That true?
Yes.
Peeling potatoes?
Yeah. You had potatoes almost every meal. You're hand peeling, you know, for 500 guys. I grew to hate potatoes. I said, who the hell is going to eat those things? You didn't peel them for 15 hours a day. But then the hard part was the pots and pans, because the cooks, they would dirty everything in the kitchen, and they did nothing except make a mess. And you had to clean up the entire kitchen after all the dinners were served. Then you might have a half an hour, 45-minute break to get lunch yourself, go outside and have a cigarette, come back in and start all over again. And I said, 21 days, that's not for me. That's when I seen what I was told you about the chapel, where these 4 great big guys with green berets were on their heads, and they looked pretty impressive, because they had the wings, but they had a green beret too. So I went over and asked what's going on here, and they said, we're trying to recruit people that might be green beret qualified.
And what would that require
I mean,
to qualify?
well, you had to be obviously a high school graduate, but they would take anybody signed up, but out of it, they take 100 people, only 4 of them graduate.
Wow. Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So you signed up, and we're on your way to
Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg. I got there, and I wanted to do weapons, and they said that class is full. Well, what else are you? They said everything else is full because they're shorter in length, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. the combat medic was 41 weeks. Nobody wanted another 41 weeks of training. So obviously, that's the one place where they had all kinds of openings. So all of us had to sign up. We didn't want to be a medic. Had no inkling to be a medic. We wanted to be in weapons and ammunition and stuff. You know, communication. Nope. If you're going to go here, you're going to go to medic. Okay. How long is it? 41 weeks.
Wow. Yeah. Intense.
Very intense.
Yeah. Was there rumors? I suppose anything you were going to train for going to Vietnam, not good. But medics had a target on the back. Were you aware of that at the time?
Yes, they made sure that you knew, so that you would pay attention, even more so than maybe the average guy that's going through weapons. He doesn't have a big target on his back. I mean, we didn't have the Red Cross on like they did in the other wars, but you had a medic bag where you carried all your medicines and instruments and stuff like that. The VC were smart enough to tell what was on your back was medic stuff. And they knew the lieutenants because they had the, they also knew the communications guy that carried the radio. So those are the first three people that they were after on a day-to-day basis. If they could get one or two of those out of the way, that pretty much everything is going to break down in your group, and you just become sitting ducks after that. So,
Dennis, is that true of any war? Those three?
Yes. The enemy is always aware of what's going to be the most destructive for a group of soldiers coming in. Obviously, the lieutenant, he's got the maps, he knows where they're supposed to be going. He's got all the information about the VC or the Germans or whoever you might be fighting. And the communication guy, he's got this big radio on his back. If you take him out, they can't communicate. You can't call back to base and let them know where you're at so you can call in bombs and stuff. And then, of course, the medics, they got the medic bag on their back as well, so they want you out too. Because if they wound somebody, they're going down. They're not going to be able to do anything. But if the medic's there, you can patch them up and they can keep on going. So.
Exactly. I'm very interested in your training in medic school. Intense. Is there any typical day? You probably kept learning more and more and more as you went along.
Well, we went after we did the first 8 weeks of the Green Beret training was some more of the stuff in the jungle, and one of the things they took us 10 miles out in the jungle at night, and they put you in a POW camp, and you had to escape from the POW camp and find your way back to the barracks. If you did that, then you passed that particular session of the Special Forces. If you got caught, they put you back in the POW camp, and they physically hit you and beat you. I mean, not to the point where they're going to try and kill you, but they're trying to break you. If you weren't going to make it through that, they didn't want you in the unit to start off with.
Interesting.
And I escaped the first time, but I was scared to death going back because you're walking in water up your waist. They got water moccasins everywhere out there. That was the thing that scared me the most. And of course, these guys, they're running around with the fake weapons and stuff, trying to catch you to bring you back, put you back in the POW camp. So you got to avoid them. You have to avoid. Of course, nobody told me if the snakes were out at night or not, but I just assumed it was some, and I was scared to death. So it took me 7 hours to get back without getting caught, and that was the end of that right there. I said, okay, what are we going to do now? But then it got easier after that, because then they sent us to Fort Sam Houston for 8 weeks for specialized medical training there.
Now, what does that mean, specialized?
You learn how to cut and sew and give injections and everything that we had to learn down there, you had to do to your friend. You had a buddy. So one day we were giving shots in the mouth in case we had pulled teeth. You got a guy who's never done this before. He's going to stick a needle in your mouth and numb you up I mean, you had to be pretty brave to accept stuff like that. So after he got done doing me, I did him, but I must have hit the nerve just right, because he couldn't talk all day long. His tongue was just so, I mean, it was really kind of funny, but he was the only one that had that happen to him. But and then of course we had to put tubes down our throats into our stomachs and draw out gas.
Oh wait, you did it to yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So it had to go all the way into your stomach so you could get stomach acid out, bring it up, and show it to the sergeant that you got this out. Everything that we did or learned how to do, we either did it to somebody else or they did it to us.
Wow.
They said you had to learn how to know what's happening and how patients feel when you're doing something, and they wanted you to know how to do it to start off with.
Now, Dennis, when you first started and they said, look, this is one of the slots that's open, that's a lot of responsibility. And if you haven't had any medical background, you're down at Fort Sam Houston doing all this stuff to others and yourself. That's pretty intense.
Yeah. But it was awful good training. I mean, they tried to give you every tool they could so that you could save a guy's leg or an arm, save his life. You know, make sure that they actually survive rather than just lay there and bleeding to death on the field.
Did that take on a new meaning to you, saving lives, being there?
Yeah. You know, you had to learn, you know, I never knew anything about CPR or any of that kind of stuff. You know, clear the airway and all that stuff. It started to get really interesting. There was one part down there that I wasn't ready for this. They took you in and you're watching a movie. It was really gory stuff of guys with their legs blown off and arms blown off. And I started getting really, really sick, and I had to get up and go outside and throw up.
Were these really documentaries of war?
Yes, it was actual footage of Vietnam.
Okay.
And what was going on. People getting burned up, blown up. It was really bloody. It was really gory. And so I went outside, and the sergeant come out and says, little sickly, are you? I says, yeah, I don't think I'm cut out for this, Sergeant. He says, you'll be surprised. You have empathy. You'll make a better medic than some of those guys in there that are laughing at it and scoffing.
Good point.
So I said, okay, well, I'll go back in. I'll try to watch. So I didn't feel quite so bad after that.
Good point.
And so he let me know that I wasn't the first one to get sick watching that stuff. Said, how in the hell am I going to do this when a mere film is making me sick? He says, you're going to watch enough of this while training down here. It'll be second nature to you, so I won't bother you. Then,
did that turn out to be true?
Yeah. The only thing that I couldn't stand is I can work on somebody else, but it scares me to death to have somebody else work on me.
Yeah, sure. But did they teach you the psychology and the emotions in the training? Because you're going to be working on buddies that you were fighting alongside.
They had a kind of a theory over there that you really don't get too close to your fellow soldiers over there, because one day they won't be there. So they said, you associate with them, try not to be best friends with them, because you're going to be working on them, they're going to get killed, and you're going to go crazy yourself. So
a certain amount of detachment.
So when we were out, we'd go out for 30-day, or not 30-day, but 3-week periods at a time in Vietnam, and we go on search and destroy missions. And so we'd set up our perimeter, and it was always me and the lieutenant. We'd dig the hole, and I was always with the lieutenant. He was watching my back, I would watch his back.
Why you and the lieutenant?
Because they wanted somebody that was kind of second in charge in the group that the people would respect. And there was one time we had a couple of black guys, and I have nothing against black guys, but they were smoking dope in Vietnam. They're on they're out there. They're supposed to be watching our backs while we're sleeping. So it was my turn to go around and check the perimeter and make sure that all the guys were awake, doing what they're supposed to do. I always carried a gun, and if I found them smoking dope, I thunked them in the helmet. I said, if you get shot, I'm not taking care of you because you're not watching my back.
Yep.
So they learned real fast. If they didn't stay awake and no dope,
Yep.
I said, I want to go home alive.
You bet.
So
You bet.
if you do it, you're going to get hit.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to help you.
You bet. Yeah. So what? By the time you got through, did you say 41 weeks?
After Fort Sam Houston, went to Fort McClellan, Alabama, where we were there for 6 weeks, and we did surgeries and delivered babies and that kind of stuff.
Wow, interesting. And then at that point, you know you're going.
No, I still got to go back and go through dog lab at Fort Bragg.
Well, okay.
You never heard of dog lab?
I don't know that one. Go ahead.
Okay. Once you get through with all that other medical stuff and you've gone to everything they can throw at you, then you go down to the dog pound and you pick out a sick dog, and you have 2 weeks to diagnose him and treat him and get him better. And if you do, I mean, you spend every day with that dog, every morning, every
Same
afternoon.
dog.
The same dog, yeah. It was your dog. You had to make. He was going to die in the dog pound anyway, they said. So you're going to work on him. You're going to treat him, fix him up, and make sure he's healthy. Okay, so every morning, you go down there, take the dog's temperature, make sure he's fed, clean him up, do whatever you got to do. Then you go do some more medical stuff, some more training. Lunch, you go back and you do the same thing with the dog. You make sure he's got all his medications. He's doing okay. Clean him up.
What kind of dog did you have?
Oh, it's just a mutt, Heinz 57.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a pretty neat dog. And so after you diagnose him, you treat him, and he's A-okay. Then they take him and they put him to sleep, and they hang his leg down over, I don't know, kind of like right there, and they take a .22 and they shoot it in the leg. And then you go in, you treat the wound. If the bullet's in there, you take the bullet out. You treat the wound, you do whatever you got to do to save the dog's life. Make sure you wrap it up, make sure he's got his antibiotics, and you're with him all day long, every day. I mean, this dog's become kind of your best friend.
What happens to the dog in the end?
Well, the last form, we had a lot of people. This was John F. Kennedy's deal for Special Forces. He's the one that created it. And he took a lot of flack because we were doing these things to dogs. And there was a lot of mothers around the base camp there that were really up in arms about this. And so the only thing we could tell them was, would you rather them work on that sick dog or your son without any training?
Oh, good point.
So they finally came around to work on the dog so you can know how to treat my son if he gets shot over there. So the last stage of Special Forces medic school was amputation. You amputate the leg.
Of the dog.
The wounded leg.
Got it.
The one that you've already
Yeah.
patched up and sewed up and fixed.
Yeah.
You amputate the leg and make sure that you just do what you're supposed to do for an amputee. And if the dog lives after that, you graduate. And then you go to Vietnam. A lot of guys, they weren't on their way to Vietnam right away. They took the dogs home with them.
Yeah.
But because I was headed for Vietnam right away,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened to the dog. They probably put him to sleep.
Yeah.
Or maybe somebody adopted him, but a three-legged dog at that time probably wasn't.
Yeah.
Not too many people wanted one, but
I can imagine.
it was a terrible school in aspect of what you were doing to this poor dog.
Yeah.
But when they brought that up to me about the dog or somebody's son, I said, okay, well, I need to know what's going on here in case this guy over here goes down to Vietnam and we need him. We can't afford to lose anybody over there.
Yeah, Dennis, was obviously it was comparable a dog's leg and when you're in Vietnam?
Well, you know about the arteries and the tendons and how to stop the bleeding and cauterization and the medication and stuff and how to utilize the tools and make sure the dog is not going to bleed to death after they get done, butchering him up. So.
Do you know if that's still going on?
I would assume so. I know that I believe some of the special forces are up at Fort Lewis now. I'm not sure if they've still got a full regiment there at Fort Bragg or not.
I've never heard this story.
I kind of lost track because we all went to Vietnam in different times with different planes and stuff and went to different areas, so I lost contact with all of them. There's a couple of guys I'd like to find out if they made it through Vietnam or not, but I don't know how to get a hold of them. So.
Yeah. Boy, you had to go through, in that amount of training, you had to go through a lot of emotions, visuals.
Well, they had psychological stuff they threw at you all the time to see if you were strong enough mentally to handle the situation. If you weren't strong enough to get through it, they didn't want you in the unit. So.
Yes. Well, you said 4 out of 100.
4 out of 100 usually get through the program.
You got to pat yourself on the back, Dennis, for that one.
Oh yeah, I'm really proud of it.
Boy, that's amazing. So do you literally graduate after McClellan? Or
no, you go back to Fort Bragg.
No?
That's where we did the dog lab, was at Fort Bragg, and that was the last posting that I had. That's when I started getting in trouble, and when I ended up going with the captain, and he says, "Okay, come back married, or you're going to the stockade." So,
Dennis, this is on video. Do you want to go into any details here, or just let it go?
Well, my wife thinks it's funny to this day.
If you don't mind sharing a little bit, because it's a great story. So you're out on the town.
Yeah, well, on Fridays and Saturdays you get to go out because you've been in the military a long time already. So you're entitled to go down and party up and stuff. So we go downtown and drink a few beers and usually end up in a fight with somebody because we thought we were special because we had Green Berets and these guys over here, they were just jumpers. They didn't have the credentials we had.
Just jumpers.
Well,
is that on the video?
That was the way we felt at the time. You felt like Superman after you got through this program, and sometimes things just happen. And I got in a fight with 4 guys, and I got 2 of them before they got me. One of them got me with a can opener on my side, so I ended up going to jail. And that's when the captain came down in the morning and looked at me and said, "Early, what are you doing?" I said, "Sir, nobody will let me get married. I love this girl."
You just met her.
Like just 2 months ago. And so he buys me breakfast at McDonald's, takes me back to base, lets me take a shower and get cleaned up. "Here's your 3-day pass. You come back married or you're going to the stockade." So I went down and met her downtown. I bought her dinner. I told her the story. I says, "If we don't get married," she says, "I don't want to get married." I said, "Well, neither do I, but I have to. I don't want to go to the stockade either." So I buy her dinner and I tell her it's just temporary. Once I head off to Vietnam, I'll give you my $10,000 life insurance policy because I'm probably not coming back. You can have that and you can get the marriage what do you call it? Dissolved? Anyway, so she finally agreed to it. And a few days later, we're on a plane back to Washington State. She met my parents. And 30 days after that, I was on my way to Vietnam, and I just assumed she was headed back to Fort Bragg, where her family was. And lo and behold, I started getting letters and care packages from her, and I kept send me some socks. You always needed fresh socks over there. And so about every 10 days or so, I'd get a fresh batch of cookies and socks, and so I just kept sending her my money. And she was there when I got home a year later, which was amazing. And she bought me a brand new car with the money I'd sent her. So, and we've been
Well, she didn't run off and spend your money.
No, she stayed right there. But we didn't find out till about 6 months later that she was pregnant and getting ready to have a baby. So anyway, we got married, and 55 years later, we're still married.
It's a fabulous story.
Oh, it makes me laugh every time I think about it. How did this ever work out? I mean, we didn't even know each other.
And she's still laughing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she thinks she can't believe it either. I mean, it's kind of surreal. So.
Dennis, how often do you share that story?
Oh, nah, not very often. It wasn't just until probably maybe the last couple of years where I've got a friend that I play golf with up at the golf course. He started asking about, he never wasn't in the military, and he started asking about Vietnam. For 20 years, I wouldn't talk about it.
To anybody?
No, I didn't talk about it with my wife. Nobody. I didn't want to even talk about it. My wife said at nighttime I would scream out, it hurts, from getting shot. I grit my teeth really bad for many, many years, to the point where my kids could hear it 2 bedrooms down.
Sure.
And so I grit all my teeth to death.
Sure.
They finally put me on some calm me down medication, which I haven't taken that for several years now. I mean, and I can actually talk about it now.
You can.
Yeah, I can talk about it. It does bother me now.
Yeah, good. Well, we just kind of jumped ahead a little bit here. I was so fascinated with your bride. So you go to Vietnam. Let's start there now. I'd like to know the day when you knew you were going, the day you actually got the orders. Do you remember that day?
Yeah. So I got to go to Tacoma, Fort Lewis, and they get you outfitted, and they tell you you got 3 days and you're going to hit the plane, Vietnam. It'll be about a 15-hour flight. And of course, my little escapade of being in jail back there at Fort Bragg, they had reduced my rank. But they give you your orders, your whole packet of what you've done. So I got 15 hours, so I'm going through it, looking at it. Oh, well, there's that Article 15. I pulled it out and threw it away. And I thought I was really doing something, giving myself the rank that I was to start with. I didn't know at the time. The minute you hit Vietnam, you automatically get that rank no matter what anyway. But I just ripped it out. I said, I don't want to go in there as a private E1. I want to be an E3 like I was. But I was an E3 when I got there anyway, no matter what. So.
I see. Do you remember that flight over? Did you sleep a lot? Did you think about what was going on?
Oh, that was pretty scary.
Was it quiet?
There was a couple of guys that were, making jokes, but the rest of them were pretty solemn. They weren't sure what was going to happen. I mean, they'd never been over there. They maybe had been trained to do it, but I was with the people that I was on a plane with. There was a lot of them, but none of them had the extensive training that I had. I mean, some of them just went through basic training, advanced infantry training, and they were on their way over there.
And, okay, this is in 1968 you're going over.
Yes.
Was that after the Tet Offensive?
No, Tet Offensive was 68, right there in December of 68.
Okay, you were there.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did you land?
I landed in Ben Hoa.
And describe the couple of days or whatever there.
Well, when you first get in the country, they take you to a 7-day school. It's called Jungle School. And that's where they have all the snakes around there, and they have the booby traps. And you have to go through here and recognize that was a booby trap, that was a booby trap. How they dug things up. I mean, those little people over there, they're pretty ingenious. They could almost booby trap a can of beer. And it would, most of the time, those booby traps, they're not meant, they don't care if they kill you or not. They just want you wounded and get you off the field, get you out of action. So
was that training around Ben Hoa?
Yeah, the Jungle School was right there.
Okay. And that was about a week?
Yeah, it was 7 days.
Yeah. And then what?
Then they put me in a helicopter and flew me to my unit at LZ English. That's just outside of Bong Song.
Yep. Central Highlands.
Yeah. And that I got there that night, and the staff sergeant there says, "Load up. You're going out right away." I said, "I just got here." I said, "I don't even know where all the stuff's at." He says, "There's the medicine room right in there. Get in there and fill up your pack, and you're going out."
Was it enough? Sufficient enough? Medicum?
Yeah. I mean, it took me a few minutes to get my bearings. I just got here and I got to go out already. I said, "This is not going to be any fun." I mean, I knew it was getting serious then.
Yeah.
So I loaded up everything that I think I could pack in there. I probably put too much in because it's pretty darn heavy. And so they put me on a helicopter. They took us out to the ocean, probably a 45-minute chopper flight. They put us on, I'm not sure what you call them, where you get in, they're like boats, and the things that they back them in to the shore.
Like a landing craft?
Yeah, and they told us that was the first amphibious assault that had happened in Vietnam. And so we hit the water, then hit the beach and started taking fire. And
right away.
That's when I knew things were hit, and I got wounded that same night.
Wow. How badly wounded?
It was just the two guys ahead of me stepped on a booby trap, and I got shrapnel in both legs and both shoulders. But I didn't even know it. I mean, my adrenaline was going so fast, and we're laying down, and they're setting up claymore mines and all this kind of stuff. It's pitch dark out. So I had two guys I had to call in, so a helicopter comes in, and so they pick them up, and they say, "We can't." After the helicopter took off, I felt this terrible burning in my legs and my shoulders, and I lifted up my pants, and I'm bleeding. And it didn't start burning until after, like I said, the adrenaline must have stopped it. So the lieutenant called in and said, "Our medic's hurt. How bad?" And he asked me how bad. I said, "Well, it's not really that bad." He said, "Well, he needs to stay out there for 2 more days before we can get a medic to replace him." So they said he can tend his own wounds, make sure he doesn't get infection in it. We'll come and get him in a couple of days. So
is that what happened?
Yeah. So I wrapped him up and went on about my business. It still burned a little bit, but it wasn't enough to get me off the field. But they wanted me in anyway because the infection over there was terrible. If you didn't get infection taken care of right away, you're probably going to get sicker than a dog and maybe lose a limb. So they came and got me and patched me up and kept me back there for a week, got me all stitched up, and I was ready to go. So they sent me back out again.
Back again. That was within the first 48 hours of landing.
Well, remember, I went to 7 days of jungle training first.
Right.
That was actually in Vietnam. And then I went to my unit. But yeah, it was in the first 48 hours of getting with my unit.
Man. The other two guys, do you ever know what happened to them?
They got sent home.
They were that bad?
Yeah. Well, the one guy, his entire back was just riddled with shrapnel. I mean, they didn't care if they killed you. They just wanted you injured to the point where you're going to have to be taken off the field. He had, I got wounded a second time a month later, and so I was sent to Cam Ranh Bay, and the one guy was still there, and I was convalescing there from my wounds, so I became one of the medics to help in the dispensary right there. And he was still there, and every day I'd have to take his bandages off and clean them off, put hydrogen peroxide on them, make sure they were clean. But he looked like somebody played tic-tac-toe all up and down his entire back and the back of his legs. So all he could do was just lay there.
And he did go home?
Yeah, they finally sent him home.
Military hospital. Yep. What do you think eventually would happen to that type of wounds in him?
In regards to the pain level or to psychological?
Both. Coming back home, would he eventually just be released from military duty?
Yeah. If he couldn't stay there in Vietnam and be of service there, it probably wasn't going to be any good to them back stateside anyway. So.
Yeah, right. Wow. Okay, so you got bandaged up, went back to your unit. you're back in Bongson again?
Just around LA English, the Tiger Mountains.
And were you out in the field a lot?
Yeah, we would go out for between 2 and 3 weeks and go on the suicide missions. We go on anything and everything that moved you shot at nighttime.
Now, what does that mean, a suicide mission?
Well, they actually call them killer patrols, where you would go out at nighttime and around the village where we thought there was VC at. You'd go through and you let the villagers know we're coming through at such a time. Have all your kids in the house, and then you guys can, if you're out walking around at dark, you're probably going to get shot, because we could shoot at anything that moved when we'd go on killer patrols.
You were attached to Special Forces.
No, I was with I got attached to 173rd Airborne Brigade.
Oh, okay. Airborne.
Yep. Which was good, because I still was able to draw my jump pay over there, that was $210.
That's good.
That was a lot of money back in 1968, 69, with $210 extra. So.
Absolutely. Did your family know, did you communicate regularly over there?
I wrote letters regularly to my mom and my dad and to my wife. And I had an aunt that lived in Milton Freewater at the time. And she started writing me, so I wrote to her on a regular basis, because she was really into this, wanted to know what the heck was going on. And of course, when you get wounded over there, they send a letter. They don't go to your house anymore. They just send a telegram. Your son has been wounded in Vietnam, and await further. He's still alive, but that was basically all they got. So the first time wasn't that big a deal. I let them know that I'm still walking. I still got all my legs and arms.
Do you think they believed you?
Yeah. So. But then the second time that I got wounded.
And how much later was that?
This was 60 days later. And this was a good one there. That was the one that blew my shoulder up. And I was unable, because I was in the hospital, and I was under sedation, and of course my shoulder had a hole in about like this, and 2 or 3 times a day they left the wound open for like 3 weeks. And put 4x8 gauze pads in there that had specialized stuff on it, and they shove it down in there all the way down. And then at nighttime they'd come and pull it out, and then they'd pack it again. And so for 3 weeks they did that with antibiotics and stuff to make sure there was no infection. And then they finally sewed it up, and they put metal stitches in. And the next morning they had me lifting a broom handle, going like this, just get movement back in my arm, and it was too soon to pull some of the stitches out. And the captain came in and said, "What the hell's happening here? What's he doing? We got to redo this whole thing all over again." He shouldn't have been doing those exercises this soon. It was just way too soon. So somebody got their butt handed to him. Yeah. And so they restitched it with the more metal stitches. And I was there for, there for 3 weeks. Then I got sent to Cam Ranh Bay for recuperation. And then I got lucky there. I got a phone call from Red Cross that my wife was having trouble. She was having surgery, and could I come home?
Emergency leave.
Yeah, at first they said no. And then the Red Cross called again and said she's getting ready to have surgery. She needs her husband now, and she's getting ready to have a baby. We don't know exactly when, but so they let me go home for 30 days.
With your injury?
Yeah. If I wouldn't have been a medic, they wouldn't have let me go. I said, I can tell my wife or my family how to dress this back here. And so they let me go home, first for 30 days, and my wife had the surgery. It was okay, everything was all right. And
due to the baby?
It was appendicitis is what it actually was the problem. At the time, they didn't really know what was going on. That's why they wanted me to come home to be with her. But so anyway, yeah, the baby was fine, and she became A-okay herself, and I didn't want to go back.
Yeah, can't imagine.
So I wasn't. I mean, I really did not want to go back. I said, I've already been shot twice, and I got many months to go yet. So, anyway, my dad talked to me and said, yeah, you gotta go. I said,
I'm surprised your dad, he would,
well, he's an ex-military man himself,
Yeah.
pride and
trying to be strong.
and all that stuff. And
Sure. You'd regret it if you didn't, I guess, huh?
yeah, and then I got some letters from the other time that I got hurt. He got the message. He was at work, and they weren't sure how severe it was this time because I hadn't been riding very much.
Now, this is the shoulder.
Yeah. So, and I wasn't sure what the hell I was going to do with myself. I said, I don't want to go back out in the field again. But they said, we spent too much money training you. You're going back.
Dang.
I said, okay, sir. Give him a salute. At the time I was trying to be joking about it, but I was scared to death.
Of course. Dennis, I can't imagine you saying goodbye to your wife and new baby, family, getting on that plane again.
Yeah,
I can't imagine it.
I try not to think about it. That was probably one of the toughest things I'd ever had to do.
Absolutely.
Going over the first time, you didn't know what was going to happen, so you really weren't scared. The second time going over, it scared the hell out of me.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. Did you think I may not make it after this trip over?
I was pretty sure I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah. The odds
I was more scared to lose an arm or a leg or an eye than I was of dying.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Death would have been maybe easier.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I feel so sorry for those guys that coming back with both legs gone and an arm gone at the same time. I mean, I just can't imagine what they're.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're bucking right up. They're doing okay. It's really amazing.
And on a side note, you watch the Tunnels to Towers, and you watch these guys, the recent wars, and the house is being built for them, and it's the same amputations.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but anyway, well, getting back to you, so you go right back to your same unit again.
Right.
And you've got how many months to go?
Let's see. I got 5 more months.
5 to go. Okay. Did they put you right back out in the field with your unit?
Yep.
And then was there
more
action?
The way they explained it to me was I don't know, maybe if you stop and think about it, 8 weeks in basic, 8 weeks in advanced infantry, 5 weeks in jump school, 41 weeks of special forces training.
Yeah.
They said they had $1 million in me.
Yeah.
Which in all of us, went through the program.
Right.
We can't afford to do this training and not utilize it. So bye, you're going back out.
Kind of hardcore, huh?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fortunately, you had some really good guys that are, backing you up out there.
Sure.
But you still never knew, what was going to get you.
Dennis, if you don't mind describing a battle that you're in, do you mind sharing, like, minutes by minutes what you're doing? How does that work?
Okay, we usually moved like 6 to 10 miles a day in our area of operation. We came under fire. We're down below at the valley, and the fires from up above. We were surrounded. A couple of guys got hit, and I'm running to them. I'm the only medic they got. I get hit. This one I got hit in the shoulder really bad. It rolled me over, and I landed on the rocks below, and I fractured a neck and fractured my back. And I got to these guys. The one guy, he survived his wounds. The other guy died. The bullet went right to his heart, and so there was nothing.
Instantly.
Yeah, I couldn't, and my arm was no good. I couldn't even use the arm, so I tried to put needles in there to get an IV in it, but. And so that disturbed me for the longest time. The sergeant finally came and told me, he said, he was shot hard. He wasn't going to survive nothing that you did lost his life.
Yeah.
He said, but the other guy you did save.
You did,
Yeah.
Dennis. And may I ask what his injuries were? Bullets through?
He got shot right here. And so I had nothing that could stop the bleeding on that, but that, like I said, special force training, you learn some really weird stuff. I found a rock, I put the rock on the wound, and I bandaged it up as tight as I could. An old dirty rock, you know, not very clean, but it stopped the bleeding.
Oh my gosh.
And so you learn kind of a whole bunch of little tiny tricks like that in that special forces training. You just utilize anything and everything you got to save these guys' lives.
Your training was above and beyond regular medic training.
Yeah, medic training for the average Army guy was 8 weeks. Not nearly enough. That's one reason why I had to go through some kind of a program with Special Forces. Glad I went through the medic school.
Wow. God bless you. Wow. Saving lives. Do you have any idea how many lives you may have saved over there?
Oh. You know, a lot of the wounds weren't life-threatening. I mean, some of them were really bad, especially if the bullet hits the bone. Like I had one guy who got shot in the leg here, so you're working right here. You think this is where the problem's at, but the AK-47 they tumble, and he bounced all over. It went up and he got him in the heart. He did not make it. There was another one that I thought was my fault of not saving him. And the captain, he had come out at the time and said he was goner. You couldn't do nothing about it. I couldn't have saved him because it ricocheted and just riddled through up all the way through his heart.
Okay, tough question. How do you keep detached? I'm guessing they're laying there, they think they're dying, and you're doing your job. The adrenaline is flowing. Is there much that you say in your training to them to keep them calm, hold their hand, or whatever it takes?
Well, I did hold this one guy's hand, and he's looking up at me, and he's taking really shallow breaths, and I said, slow down, you're going to make it. The chopper's coming. It's going to be here in just a few minutes. Hey, hang on. He died before the chopper got there because it takes some time for them to find us. They got to find out an elevator to drop in on, and so.
But just keeping them calm and giving them some hope.
Yeah, well, this one guy that we're talking about right there, at the same time, this other guy, the one that got shot here in the hip, I was working on him too. So
two of them, what you're doing two at a time.
The one guy, I pretty much knew he wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
The other guy was going to make it because he was just shot in the hip. So most of my time was spent on him, putting that rock on and making sure he didn't bleed to death.
Hard question, so you have to prioritize.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. The dust stops coming in. Do they get there pretty, or it depends on where you are?
Well, yeah, it depends on if there's a unit of VC around there. They have to say, well, we can't make it there. Can you get them over here? So sometimes they get within 100 yards of you, and sometimes you got 900 yards before you have to go to take the guy to get to them.
Okay, another tough question. This is heavy stuff. You're in a battle. Things are happening. You're trying to focus. Your life could be in danger too, but your focus is on saving these lives.
Right. At that time, they're your only family.
Yeah. And that's what they teach them.
You have to rely on them, and then they have to rely on you. They have to trust you, so you have to be able to trust them as well. I mean, they're trying to. They want to make sure that I'm around. I'm the only medic they got, so they kind of take care of you as best they can.
Of course they would. You're armed though too. You're armed.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's
They
armed.
gave me a 45. I said, what? Yeah, these are good for like 20 yards. So
No lie.
I said, I need an M16. Medics don't carry M16s. You got enough stuff to deal with.
Wow.
So what I did was, No, I wasn't supposed to, but I got a couple of hand grenades from a couple of guys. I carried a Claymore mine with me to make sure we had enough of those around. We lost a guy. His weapon actually ended up in my hand for some reason. That became my M16 after that.
You bet.
So I carried a 45 and an M16, a couple of hand grenades.
No one's complaining.
No, if there's nobody's wounded, nobody's hurt. They want me firing right with them. So I just equipped myself the best I could.
You bet. Before you went over, did they give you the cold hard statistics on medics? Survival.
Yeah, they said 5 minutes lifespan.
5 minutes.
When a medic lands, gets with his unit, they said 5 minutes is what the lifespan is of the average medic over there. Wow. And that didn't seem realistic to me, but that's what they told me. And I mean, I got hurt the first day I was there.
Yeah. Well, is it because you are called to be exposed?
Well, yeah. If somebody gets hurt, you're running to them. They, the VC, obviously know you're the medic. They can tell you're the medic because of the stuff you're packing on your back.
Right. Could you describe what's in that backpack?
Okay, all the medicines that I needed, the injections that I needed, morphine, bandages, albumin.
What is that?
That's for the IV. We couldn't carry blood out over there, so you carried this stuff that was like, I don't know, honey, really, really thick, and the gauge on the needle was the biggest needle I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it had an opening about like that.
Wow.
So that's what. If you didn't have that size of gauge needle, the albumin wouldn't flow into their vein, and that was the blood replacement that we had to utilize over there with albumin because it wouldn't spoil. It didn't need to be heated.
And effective.
Yeah, it was effective. Hard to get in though, especially if the guy's going into shock. When he goes into shock, his veins and everything, they kind of close up. They get smaller. They kind of go hide. So you've got to hunt them down. It was one of the toughest things I ever had to do was try to get albumin and the needle into the guy's arm before they shrunk up.
And it would hurt.
Well, if they were shot or wounded, they were under.
Yeah, sure.
They didn't feel the needle. They wanted the needle in there as fast as they could get it. So.
You know, and I guess I apologize for going into so many specifics, but the dust stuff is getting there. Are the combat troops, they're the ones that get the guys on the stretcher into the helicopter? You're busy, or do you help also?
Well, it all depends. If I'm with another wounded guy, I'm staying there. Otherwise, I go with the guy, help get him into the chopper. And I wanted to get in the chopper with him.
Yeah.
So,
but do they know what to do once he's in the chopper?
They have a doctor or a nurse on board that sets them up with an actual IV so that they don't go into shock.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And they do the life-saving techniques in the chopper while taking them to probably the 87th Vac Hospital in Quignon.
In Quignon.
Yeah.
Hard question. Have you watched dust ups shot down?
Only once.
That's good. Because they're really exposed.
Yeah, I loved hearing them come in.
Oh, I bet you. Sweet music.
I just wish they were coming to pick me up every time, but most of the time they weren't. So, but like I said, we'd go out for a week or 3 weeks at a time. They would drop us off out there in the chopper, but they would also come and pick us up in the chopper. So when you hear those blades coming in, there's no better sound. And you just keep looking up and make sure they don't get shot down.
Oh, that's the truth. That's the truth.
I love helicopters.
I just want to make a little side note here. Our Congresswoman in bilateral legislation is giving a congressional gold medal. I think I'm saying that to the dust off pilots. That is now in legislation to finally honor them.
Oh, I would give one myself to him.
You bet. You bet.
There was no better sound and no better friend than that guy coming to pick you up and take you back to base.
Absolutely. Okay, Dennis, so you've got 5 months to go, and you're out in the field most of the time.
Yep.
How'd you sleep out there? What was it like?
Oh,
And the food?
You know, I thought about that the other day. I really don't recall sleeping much.
I bet.
We dug a hole every night,
Every night?
and we carried a mattress. You blew it up, and you put it in the hole so you're not just sleeping on the ground. And of course, every morning you roll it up and put it on your back and continue on. But you dig a hole deep enough to where if a bullet comes over, it's going to miss you.
So it's literally a foxhole?
Yeah, it's a foxhole.
Wet? Clay?
No, it's nice dirt, actually, with ants everywhere. I got up one morning and I lifted my mattress up, and it looked like there was 1,000,000 ants. For some reason, they didn't get on you. They didn't go up on top. They got underneath the air mattress. And how in the hell am I sleeping in this junk? No, but I didn't sleep much over there.
Was he married?
I said, yeah, he got married later on, and the one snake stayed on the ground, and the other one slept in bed with him. I'm serious. I said, yeah, that's astonishing. I said, you sleep in bed with a big ass snake? No. He said, why don't you come over and visit? I said, I think not.
Oh, Dennis. Okay, we ready, Vic? Ready?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So I did want to ask you. You're sleeping and your living conditions out in the field. You had sea rations, and your kind of foam rubber.
Well, we didn't take so much sea rations. They were alerts, long range reconnaissance patrol. They're little packages like, and you just put a little bit of water in it and shake it up and eat it. You could eat it like that, or you could turn the helmet over and cook it in your helmet. But you could do both ways.
Pretty good nutrition, though. You kept your...
Yeah, there was one. It was I like kind of like a hamburger helper that I really like. Everybody else looked at me like I was crazy, but you give me all those, you could take this other stuff. I didn't want to carry you like the sea rations. They're so darn heavy. If you're packing enough stuff for a week or 2-3 weeks, you're loaded down with it.
Now, speaking of which, you had extra baggage because of your medic stuff.
Right.
Did other people carry stuff for you? Or you had...
Yeah, they would.
For you, yeah.
Yeah, because they wanted me fresh. So they wanted me alert and alive. So
keep you fed.
Yeah.
And did you always have a fresh supply of medical stuff? That was not an issue?
Yeah, any time that I was running low, they would send a chopper out and I would just order over the phone. I'd tell the radio guy, I need this, I need that, and they'll be out in the area in 2 or 3 hours, so just they'll give you a call.
Yeah.
Pop some pink smoke or green smoke or something, they'll get it to you.
Dennis, did you serve also as kind of a medic, chaplain, comforter, all those roles?
No, I figured soldier and medic is all I could handle at the time.
Yeah. Did they come to you anyway for comfort?
They came to me to get back to the base camp. They would do anything and everything. They wouldn't take their malaria pills. They wouldn't take their salt tablets. They'd do all kinds of stuff to get out of the field. I mean,
Sure.
it was amazing how many. And I can't say that I blame them. I mean, I would have loved to have gone back to the field too, but
Sure.
they didn't have any other medics except for me at the time, so I was stuck.
Sure. Keeping dry clothes, clean.
Oh, it was a tough job.
Yeah.
I carried 10 pairs of socks.
10.
10.
Yep.
And I changed we're always in the swamp, we're in the rice paddies. As soon as we got on dry ground, I told the lieutenant, we got to stop, I got to change my socks. I said everybody else should do the same thing because they're not going in because they got jungle rot in their foot. They can carry socks just like I do.
Yeah.
So I would change my socks and tie the wet socks on the back of my rucksack, and the sun would dry them out. And
Yeah.
I always kept clean socks.
Yep. Jungle rot and malaria, two major things over there.
Yeah, that we get the guys out of the field faster than anything else. They couldn't function with the malaria, and of course jungle rot. Their feet start hurting. They could lose toes if they don't take care of it. So obviously those got to go back in.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Toothaches, if I couldn't pull a tooth or give the guy some kind of relief, he had to go back in. And so guys are shuffling back and forth all the time.
Pulling teeth too.
Yeah.
Wow. Boy. Well, okay, you're getting toward the last month or so.
Scared to death.
You bet.
I was really scared.
I bet.
Come down to a month.
Yep.
Man, you're just looking anywhere and everywhere.
Yep. Did they bring you back the last 30 days?
Yeah, but then they said the medic got hurt on, what was the fire base? I forget the name of the fire base now, but anyway, the medic got hurt and we got to have you out there. I only have 30 days left.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a safe place.
Yeah.
If it's a safe place, how come the medic got hurt? So anyway, well, they sent me out there. They said, we'll get you back in 5 days.
Yeah.
So for 5 days, and we're getting shelled. Come on, I got to get out of here. And finally, they sent somebody out to take my place. And I started running toward the helicopter and jumped in that thing and was never so happy in my life. I said, let's get the hell out of here.
Can't imagine.
I got to go back home.
Did you ever do any civic action while you were there?
Yeah, when there was a period there when I got back from the United States after seeing my wife, I was still recuperating. I would go on flights with the doctor, going to certain villages, and we would check out the people, see what they needed. You know, if they had people in there coughing really bad, they had malaria. He would just do, you know, like a sick call for the entire village for the whole day, and then the helicopter would come pick us up and take us back to base camp.
Well received.
Yeah.
Well received. Yeah. What would you say the average lifespan over there was?
For the people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had some really, really old people there. I mean, maybe they weren't, they just looked old. I mean, they didn't know their age. We, of course, obviously didn't know, but they had mama sons and papa sons that looked like they were, you know, grandmother and grandfathers 4 or 5 times over.
Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah.
Or beetle nut.
Yeah, they smile with that nice grin.
So,
Did you know what? We went to one village, and they wanted to. We helped them out. We got the VC out of there, so they were really happy with it. So they invited us to stay for food. They took an old water buffalo, really old, unable to work anymore, and they tied him up, staked him down, and they beat him to death for about 6 hours to tenderize it. I said I couldn't eat it. I couldn't have anything to do with it. I wanted to shoot every darn one of them. That was the most sickening thing I ever saw in my life.
Oh my! You never ate on the economy.
No.
Yeah. And you always had water. No issues with water.
Yeah, we had water pills. If we had to get swamp water, you fill up your canteen and put one pill in there, and it didn't make it look any better, but you weren't going to get sick from it.
Right.
Some of the guys wouldn't put the pill in, so they get dysentery, so I'd have to send them back. It was a lot of different ways to get out of the field. And if I wasn't able to outsmart them, they would get their way. But most of the time I was able to, no, you're not going in.
Sure. You were there during the Tet Offensive.
Right.
And did it affect you?
We were getting shelled all night. We were back at base camp at the time, at the LZ English.
It was all over the country.
Yeah. And we were actually watching a movie. And here comes the announcement, shells are coming in, get back to your hooches, your foxholes, wherever you're at. Just get away from the movie.
Did it last a long time where you were?
I think it lasted most of the night.
Yeah. Did you know what was going on?
No, I had no idea.
You didn't know about Saigon and
Nope.
Tan Son Nhut?
Nope.
Not a word on that, yeah. Wow. Well, you saw it all.
Well, we were just kind of isolated out there. I mean, we're really not around anything close by.
Right.
Bong Song, it was just a little tiny village.
Right. I've seen it. I know. Yeah.
And it wasn't not going to Las Vegas, that's for sure.
Got that right.
And you go down and you buy warm beer.
Yeah.
We figured out how to get cold beer though. If you bought a cube of ice, about this size, down in Bong Song, cost you $20. You put your beer on top of that and roll it for 60 seconds. The beer is ice cold because the cans are tin.
Oh yeah.
You got ice cold, so we didn't mind paying the $20 for a chunk of ice.
You betcha.
The warm beer was not mine.
Oh, you bet.
Nice cold beer is what I don't want to drink no warm beer.
You got it. Well, all right. We're winding down here. You got back into base camp. You were there a couple of weeks before departure.
No, well, when I got back from the other deployment, when Medi got injured, I was actually back there for like a month and a half, and I did sick call that's where the brigade was stationed at, around there, for the 173rd, so I helped the captain do sick call.
Dennis, weren't you in pain the whole time after that the soldier shoulder injury?
Oh, yeah, but take a pain pill.
Yeah. But it was healing okay.
Yeah, it was healing fine.
Yeah.
To this day, the worst part about that injury there was when I was 18 before I went in the military, I had a couple of guys from the country club out there. They were going to put me on a professional tour, pay my way for a year. And they said, after that, you're on your own. If you make any money, we'll split it with you. And then, of course, then I signed up for Vietnam. Or not Vietnam, but I signed up for the military. Just thinking, well, I was going to get 3 years in and get the free college.
Right.
But they were going to pay my way to be a professional golfer. Well, after getting shot in the shoulder, I couldn't swing a golf club for 7 years.
Wow.
And of course, to this day, I can't do it right. So.
Wow. Yeah.
I may be talking him to death there. Huh?
That was for you. Do you need one?
It was for me? I'll share.
I have more. You need it. Well, okay, so you're back in base camp. You got your ETA date, okay? And you have to remember that day.
Oh, yeah.
Leaving that country. Where were you? And what was it like?
I was so worried that when the plane took off, it was a big plane, right? They can shoot those down pretty easy. That was one of my biggest fears, to get that close to getting home on the big bird.
Freedom bird.
Yeah. Yeah, I said, please don't let this get shot down. I mean, until I got, maybe 15,000 feet in the air, then I stopped worrying.
Yep.
But when it was taking off, you couldn't believe it. I can't even describe the joy of, I don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah. Did the whole plane full of soldiers just shout out, or was it quiet?
Oh, no, there were some guys who were quiet. Most of us were pretty boisterous.
You bet.
I mean, and they let us run around and do whatever we wanted to do.
You bet.
No smoking, no drinking, nothing like that. But you could still joke around and laugh and look at the ground and think about, oh, there comes another plane. Oh, sorry, poor guy. You don't feel so sorry for him.
Yeah.
But I'm going home.
Yeah.
That's all I could think of.
Freedom bird.
Yeah.
And leaving the airspace. Yeah. So did you stop along the way? Did it get kind of quiet then the rest of the way?
Let's see. We stopped at Alaska for fuel. No, that was going over the first time. And we stopped in Hawaii once. but I don't recall which way I was going, but I know it wouldn't let us off the plane because they knew some of them weren't going to get back on. So you could look at Hawaii, but you're not going to get off the plane. The same with Alaska. We stopped in Anchorage. We stopped in Tokyo for fuel. But like I said, I don't recall whether it was coming or going, or which time it was. That was all kind of a blur.
Yeah. And you landed where?
Fort Lewis.
And was your family there?
I landed at Fort Lewis so I could turn in all my stuff, except for the clothes on my back, and of course my fatigues and stuff like that. Then they put me on a plane to Tri-Cities where my folks and my wife were at. They met me there.
Your heart must have been in your throat.
Oh, when I first stepped off the plane, and of course you're looking down. The first thing, of course, I went and hugged my family, and then I kissed the ground.
Yep. Literally.
Yeah. I got down on my hands and knees.
Yep, you bet. America. Isn't that the sweetest sound?
Oh, geez, it was fantastic.
Sweetest sound.
Yep.
Now, no incidents. You were out of uniform. There was no monkey business about.
No, nobody throwing any rocks or anything.
Okay. So, was that the end of your service once you got to Tri-Cities then?
Yes.
That was, it was over.
They wanted me to re-enlist for another 6 years. They said they were making my MOS warrant officer. They said, don't you want to be a warrant officer? I said, where am I going? He said, Vietnam. See you later. I said, no, thank you. I said, I've done enough. I'll just do my rest of my time on guards or whatever they make you do.
Right. So, so then, that was 1969 then?
Yep.
1969. And you were through, then the rest of your time then, what happened in post-Vietnam?
Oh, let's see. Oh, I left one thing out. When I got back, I still had 6 months to go on my tour of duty for the full 3 years. So they sent me to Fort Ord so I could do a sick call down there they were running basic training stuff, and of course those guys get hurt and get sick all the time. So for 6 months I did a sick call. They didn't have a doctor in our specific place, but they said you're qualified to do most everything we do anyway, so if you have a problem, call us, I'll come over. So I did sick call for 6 months, and every weekend we drove from San Jose to Walla Walla to see my family, because we had a little daughter, and of course that
wait a minute, you were down there by yourself or your family?
No, my wife and my wife and daughter went down with us. And on the weekends we would take that 16-hour drive up and see my folks, and then stay there one day and turn around and drive back. But, you know, we were young, it didn't matter.
Sure. Oh my, and how old was your daughter when you got home?
Oh, see, she was born in June of 68 or 69. She was just, 7 months old?
Baby. Yeah, what a joy.
But she was like a little monkey. We had a crib for her. And my wife would say, why don't you go put her to bed? So I'd put her to bed and I'd pull the door shut. And she says, where's your daughter at? I said, she's in bed. She said, look behind you. 7 months old, she's crawling out of that crib.
Wow. Like her dad.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Every night I had to go through this where I'd put her in bed, she'd sneak out right behind me. So finally, I mean, she'd get tired and she'd go to sleep. But
that's cute.
I couldn't believe she'd crawl out of that crib like that.
So, so you ended your time down at Fort Ord.
Fort Ord.
Came back up here, and then what?
Let's see. Oh, we bought a tavern in Hermiston.
Really?
Well, my dad kind of enticed me because he knew they were after me to extend, to re-enlist. He says, there's a little tavern over in Hermiston that's for sale. Why don't we buy that and you can run it? I said, I don't know anything about running a tavern. He says, well, what are your other options? I said, well, I'm thinking seriously about, maybe going back over there. I was also offered I'm not sure who the heck it was. They offered me $80,000 to go over
To
there.
do what?
To go back over there and be a mercenary.
Oh my, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But I knew there was no coming back from that.
Yeah.
I said, $80,000, that's a lot of money.
But
I was hurt enough, I said I couldn't handle it anyway, so.
I can imagine.
So we bought the tavern.
Yeah.
And the guys there always used to get a big kick of throwing a firecracker down and watch me jump underneath the pool table. It got to be not very funny after a while. So I started getting mad about it. So it eventually stopped, but for the first couple, 3 weeks there, they thought boom, firecracker.
Yeah, they didn't get it.
No, they'd never been in the military, so they didn't know. They just thought it was funny.
But speaking of that, Dennis, did it take you a while to just get settled down?
Well, I couldn't talk about it for a long time. I think I told you before, but my wife and my daughter said I grit my teeth for many years to the point where it kept them awake. I bit, the dentist would give me mouth guards, I'd bite through them. Maybe for 7, 8 years I did that, and my wife said I would scream at night in pain and agony, and although I probably wasn't in any pain at the time, but she said, you must have been, that must have been the time you got shot in the shoulder when it was hurting so bad. So I had nightmares for like 5 or 6 years, and like I said, I never talked to anybody about it. I didn't want to re-experience any of that stuff again until maybe the last couple of years. Like I said, I had a friend up at the golf course that wanted to know about some of that stuff, so we talked about it.
These last couple of years?
Yeah, just the last 2 years. He asked me to go up to the golf course and have a couple of beers with him, and he wanted to know what went on. He said he watched a movie and wanted to know what my experiences were, so I talked about it with him over a couple of beers, and that was the extent of it.
That was it, Dennis?
Well,
Yeah.
you know, that part was behind my.
Yeah.
I was thankful I came home with both legs, both arms,
Yeah.
2 eyes, and a half a brain. So.
And not to be too personal, survivor's guilt, that's always an issue.
Yeah, there was in some ways I was really unlucky, but in other ways I was the luckiest guy alive because I came back alive and well, and not really too awful messed up in the head. I didn't do drugs or anything like that.
That's
I
good.
never did marijuana.
No, that's good.
Even though they tried to get me to do it, I said,
Yeah.
no, if I want to come home alive, you guys are not going to drink or do that stuff around me either. So.
You bet. Did your wife ever bring it up to you or just let it go?
Nope, she just let it go.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and now, how many children then?
Well, just the 2 daughters.
Okay, and I named their names and your wife's name?
The oldest daughter is Denise Renee, and the youngest one is Dominique Raquel, and my wife's name is Vivian.
Vivian, good lady. What a story.
Yeah, she 55 years put up with me. She should get a medal herself for that. But.
Well, actually, military families should get, you're absolutely right, recognition. But anyway, so if there's let me ask you this. In closing here, did I leave anything out, anything else that you would like to share in your amazing story?
Well, there's probably a lot that I can't think of right off the top of my head. So
you did a good job.
Yeah, that's I probably wore yours out anyway. So
and
this is probably the most I talked about it in my entire life.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you for saying yes.
Well, you asked, pertinent questions. You asked some of the right questions, and like I said, I've never considered a lot of that stuff in retrospect. So. The experience that I had going through that medical thing, I saved my cook's life up there at the golf course.
What happened?
He was cooking one day, and he had a heart attack. He went down, he turned about the color of that table right there, and so we called the services to come in the ambulance, come and get him. It was 15 minutes, so I did CPR on him for 15 minutes. And the guy that come in and helped get him out, and get him loaded up in the ambulance said, You know, if you wouldn't have done that, he would not have survived.
Wow.
He said, I've never seen anybody do CPR for 15 minutes, and the guy lived. So
Dennis,
he's still alive to this day.
does he realize what you did?
His grandkids, every time they see us, come up and shake my hand.
I bet. How blessed he was for you to be there with that training.
Yeah, he would not have survived that if I wouldn't have done CPR for 15 minutes on him.
Has there been any other situations that your training came in handy?
Oh, we were coming back from, we were visiting my daughter in Minnesota, coming back, and there was this guy, really stupid, driving a Jeep, went around us doing about 80 miles an hour and hit the gravel and flipped it. And so I crawled underneath the Jeep and made sure his airway and stuff was open while they called for an ambulance to come. And it probably helped save that guy's life.
You bet.
But other than that, those are the only two major things that come to, I mean,
Actually,
I did a lot of injuries with my kids and that kind of stuff, but.
Actually, I'm surprised there haven't been more incidents for you to serve with all your training, to tell you the truth, in all these years.
Well, you don't see too many bad things on a golf course, and that's where I spend most of my time. If I'm not playing golf, I was mowing fairways out there for free. I mean, I volunteered to mow fairways for them twice a week, so I'm out there. That's no danger out there.
Good point. So, how do you think your service and experiences affected the rest of your life? I think you kind of answered it.
It made me more aware of life itself, but it also made me proud to be an American.
Thank you. This is a little sticky question. You can answer it any way you want. Do you think the war could have turned out differently?
Yeah, we lost.
Yeah. You didn't have to.
The one thing that I hated the most over there about that was we were told we could not fire until fired upon. So if we saw the enemy sitting out here 50 yards over there, we couldn't shoot, and we had to wait till they fired on us. By that time, you'd probably lost one, maybe two guys. Anyway, then you got to fire back. If you fired before you got fired upon first, you're getting a court-martial.
Thank you for that to be on the tape.
I hated that.
Yeah.
Why do I have it? Why did they train me to do this? Why did they train those guys to shoot and do the stuff that they do? And they got to get killed before we can shoot back. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It was criminal.
Yeah, somebody should have been prosecuted.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Vic, do you have any questions?
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I'm a lifetime member at the VFW.
All right.
In fact, there's a big to-do there, 100-year anniversary on the 6th.
100th year.
I think, 100 years, I can wait one to that.
Yeah, good.
Well, I've been a member of the Outlaws for 55 years, but...
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, Dennis, thank you. He knows how emotional I get at the end of these interviews, because it is such a privilege to me and Vic to be here. You are all bravehearts. You are our unsung heroes. And
I'm no hero, but
we thank you.
I came home alive. That's
We thank you so much.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Oh,
For all the interviews that I saw you have in your garage there,
you're going to be on the board.
You have no time for nothing else, do you?
Well, actually, I do. Anyway, you'll be on that board. But thank you again so much, Dennis. It was a wonderful interview.
Well, thanks for doing this.
So much.